Welcome to The Joey Show. Thank God I have a podcast. Today we have on a very special guest, Mr. Mark Normand, hilarious comedian. I could give his accolades. I think knowing how algorithms work, the chances are you're probably watching this wondering more who I am. Well, you can figure that out. I'll put some links in the description. But if somehow you don't know Mark, incredible, one of the best comedians working. His latest special was on Netflix. It's called Soup to Nuts. Great special. Out to Lunch is a great special he has on YouTube. And also, I mean, he's been doing it for a long time. I remember when I was a few years into comedy, a friend of mine recommended him to me and was like, this is one of the funnier guys doing it out of New York. Check this out. And I swear, I think it was so long ago, he burnt me a CD that I played in a car on a long road trip. So that's how long it's been. So it's great that he could be one of the first guests. Actually, full circle moment for me. The first time I met him, I got a chance to open for him. I had just passed at the Punchline in San Francisco. And when you pass there, you get access to a few clubs. Passing meaning you're allowed to host a weekend. So you get to work with one person for 5 shows, open the show, do 10 minutes up top, make like $50 a show. And I got offered to work with him in Sacramento, and it was the same weekend as one of my really close friends' bachelor party that I already committed to in Vegas. And a friend that had more money than me. So it was they had like a nice room, like a penthouse sort of vibe. It sounded awesome. It sounds like it was I missed out on a hell of a bachelor party, but I said no because I wanted to work with this guy. And I also, had just passed, and I didn't know you were allowed to say no to anything. So it's like, I have to take this opportunity, and I did. And from that first meeting, even all those years ago, I'm sure had potential the whole time, but objectively looking back, a lot better now than I was then, but always was so nice. And I think he had me on a Patreon episode of his podcast, Tuesdays with Stories with Joe List, and we became friends. I've gotten to open with him several more times, and now, of course, living here in New York, someone that I get to see. So it's a great episode. We talk about... It's a very comedy-dense episode. We're going to do a lot of things on this podcast. We're going to explore stuff that is unrelated to comedy, but with Mark, such a perfect person to dive deep into the comedy game with. We talk about a lot of stuff. There's some joke writing stuff, some philosophy on how your brain works in comedy, if you have control over that, and some new aspects of what it's like to be a comedian in the YouTube dominant world. We'll plug in a rant at the end of this episode, and I threw a little sketch in there, but since we got Mark, let's get right to it. Here's the interview with Mark Normand.
Comics, hey, you bring 5 people, I'll put you up. And they're like, I only brought 4. And he's like, you piece of shit, you're not going up. Jim Gaffigan's coming in. He might have used you to open. He just totally lies to younger comics.
So he's just a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Is that inherent in any industry where so many people want to do it, that you're just going to get like weird leeches that basically exist off of trying to ruin dreams and being a dick to people?
Totally. I mean, it starts in every art form, like the Harvey Weinsteins are like, oh, I have this, you want this, give me something.
Right.
So yeah, I'm sure that's everywhere.
Do you think that's going to go away now that we have the internet? Like, I feel like there is actually now a legitimate currency in exposing people that have power. Like, everyone's looking for a hook for a YouTube video.
True, but you always have that sucker born every minute right off the boat, some bright-eyed, pigtailed fat chick who wants her break, and you're going to they just keep coming. They just keep showing up. So you'll get to screw that person once.
Right,
it's like a flyer guy who goes, hey, we got Dave Chappelle in there. Hey, we got David Letterman. We got Greg Giraldo. We got Richard Pryor. You're like, wow, you got Pryor going on tonight. All right, I'll go to that show.
Right.
I thought he was dead, and then you get in there, and you're like, oh, never again. But they got you once.
Yeah. And I guess unless you have a big enough name, it's not like a story. Like, we were talking, not saying who we're talking about, but no one gives a shit about a low-level comedy booker. Like, no one's gonna be like, oh wow, that's a tale.
Exactly. Yeah, there was some comic who got in trouble recently. I'm not gonna say who or what he did, but the only saving grace is that he's not established. If he was famous, he'd be ruined. Because it would be a story.
I think is this a story about at the cellar?
Yeah,
and may have done some touching.
Yeah, we don't want to get into it.
Okay,
But
yeah.
if this kid was big, he'd be done. If that was Sebastian.
But can you get big if that's in your past?
Well, that's a whole nother...
I don't know if the statute of limitations works when you're just talking about,
Yeah. I don't know what statute means. I pretend to.
Well, you know what the statute of limitations is.
I think I do. If I hear it, I can figure it out. But if you ask me to define it, I couldn't do it.
It's a legal principle. It basically means like, oh, your time ran out on that crime. You can't go like... I don't know how it's applied, but an example would be like, we found footage of you shoplifting from 20 years ago. They would be like, the statute of limitations on that is out. You can't get me for that.
Okay. Can't we say the clock is over, the shot clock, time's over? The statute of limitations, it's such a
legal
fancy...
speak has to be fancy so we respect it.
That's true. You ever read, my parents were both lawyers and they quit because they hated it, but you read these affidavits, which is another legal term, and it's just like, I hereby, they do. It's like talking to a trans person.
Yeah.
It's all they and them and who and hereby, and I'm like, this is like the Middle Ages.
So your parents were lawyers, but they quit?
Yeah, because you have to defend the guy even if he's guilty. So that was eating away at their conscience. I can't live like this. The guy's like, yeah, I did it, but...
And they were public defenders?
Public defenders,
in New Orleans?
In New Orleans. So my dad's got a seersucker.
That's a busy gig.
Oh, yeah. And Southern law, I do declare. He's got the damp towelette with the seersucker and the mint julep and the mean judge.
God damn.
Yeah.
So what do they do after they quit?
My dad went into real estate, and my mom now owns a food museum. Check it out. Southern Food and Beverage Museum in New Orleans.
Wait, how did that happen?
She's a big foodie Sicilian lady, and she likes to whip up a nice dish, and she's obsessed with food, like the origins of soul food, the origins of Creole cooking, and she's written 4 books, and she just loves food and cooking, and she made a museum.
God damn.
Yeah.
Do you like cooking?
No.
You're not interested in it at all? Did she cook up lovely dishes when you were a kid?
Oh, my God. Yeah, all kinds of crazy stuff. Thanksgiving at our house is bananas.
Uh-huh.
And, crawfish etouffee, seafood gumbo, all this stuff growing up was incredible. So I got the best of both.
Is it still fun going home for those things? Is it like a big to-do, food everywhere, drinking?
It's fun, yeah, although my wife claims to be... fancies herself a bit of a chef bitch, and so then now you got the 2 women going head to head on cooking.
Does that cause problems, or does everyone benefit from great dishes?
We benefit, but my wife is, I think women, the wife and the mother of the man you're married to, there always is like a weird tension there. I think everywhere and throughout history and generations. So I think you're like your wife's like, I want to impress your mom, and your mom's like, hey, this is my turf. So there's a weird women vaginal, and they get along and they're great. I'm not trying to start shit, but
right.
I think that's just normal.
That's the hardest thing when you're integrating a relationship. Like all the girls that I've ever dated have been horrified of my mom. And
yes.
She's like 5'0" nothing. And
that's
they're like,
it.
I don't really know. And I'm like, don't worry about her. And they're like, no, I have to.
Yeah, well, women are smart and intuitive, so they're not going to beat each other up. But there's all these games playing. It's like 2 magicians.
With a dad, like it's high stakes because you want the dad to like
sure.
you, but at the same time, it's a dude.
It's
I'm
a
like,
dude. Yeah.
I know how to like get down with the fella. Like
yes.
that's not going to be an issue for me. Like, does he like beers? Can we drink beers? We should be fine. If he likes sports, it's over.
It's over. It's pretty cut and dry with dudes, Do you like me? Don't like me? All right, I'll stay back. Can I win you over? With women, it's all these mind games, and it's a whole mental.
Why do you think that is?
I think that's how women operate.
Well,
because they're not physically violent people, so they gotta go another way.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's because that's how they rule their jungle.
Yeah, I mean, have you ever seen...
It doesn't make sense to just like push each other around. It's like, all right, let's win it's more of a Queen's Gambit. You're
Yes.
playing chess. You're doing this sort of shit.
It's like eating disorders, Mean Girls. The whole plot of Mean Girls is that.
Right.
I had a thing. Oh, you ever see women like meet up and they go, "Oh my God, I love your hair. I love your jacket. That's so
they
cute."
Turn
Then-
around that fucking bitch.
Exactly. And guys go, "What's up with that fucking jacket? What is that?" And it's meaner, but at least it's up front. And then
you just defend yourself, and it's like, okay, we're good. And
We're
like,
good.
Who cares? We can move on.
And I'm not saying one is better or worse. I'm just saying what I've
they
seen.
Are and of course, and it doesn't apply to every.
Yes, I'm generalizing.
I'm glad that we're past that. I do feel like there was a time in comedy, and maybe it was just me because I came up through the Bay Area, but I would feel like I would try to write something, but it would always become so long because I would have to be like, I've observed this. Now, of course, that doesn't mean every woman is this way or every white person is this way or every blank is that way because, of course, we all exist on a spectrum, but in the cases in which it is, here's why it's funny.
I know, and it's all such horseshit because you have to do all these caveats. Not saying they're all. I'm generalizing, but then, people get mad at you. Then they'll be like, "Men are all toxic," and you're like, "Well, wait, how come you can do it?"
Yeah,
you just did it about toxic masculinity.
How come you get the economy of words? You got a tight little thing right there.
Yeah, love a tight little thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I do think that's kind of ended though. Like, I mean, obviously it goes in. Maybe it goes in cycles, but like. The show last night, I think you had to pop to another spot, but Attell came in and
the king
destroyed, of course, not surprised, but
so good.
Saying shit that like most people come up to you when you're a comedian and they're like, "Man, you can't say anything anymore." And it's like, actually go to a show.
Yeah.
You said everything. And it was awesome.
There was a
everyone
stint.
loved it.
There was a stint, a year and a half, 2 years of like, some lady in a mask going at you from the audience, and you're like, "Whoa, where's this coming from?" I did a joke about it. I said something about hookers, and a woman was like, "You're promoting sex trafficking," and I was like, "The leap you just took to get there. Like, I know you want to have your moment, your moment in the sun right now by being a hero activist." But you don't even know what the fuck you're talking about. I was talking about hookers,
right?
And you're on the sex trafficking. What about female empowerment? I thought they were sex workers, or So
that's
which
the
one
thing
is
is
it?
there's so much. I think what changed it is there's so much infighting in the group
Yes!
that if you want to be like that's sex trafficking, there's someone to be like, "Oh, I'm sorry. Are you not sex positive?
Totally.
Do you not believe in sex work?"
Exactly.
And then now you're back to being like, "So the whores."
Yeah, yeah. Now they're backpedaling, and you're right. And you're right. I think we've gone past it. I think it helped comedy in a lot of ways. It made comedy way more popular because people want to hear crazy shit. You'll get a little backlash, but overall, I think it helped comedy in some ways.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to forget all the people who went down that road.
Right.
So, yes, it is changing. Yes, we are coming out of it. But I got the whole list up here,
That's
baby.
good.
I'm
That's
like
good.
Buscemi with the lipstick,
Yeah. No, I think the new backlash for comedy is actually people being popular. Like, I feel like the new thing is, we discussed this a little bit. I don't know if you want to talk about it too much, but there is an interesting subset of YouTube now, which is not popular podcasters talking to other comedians. It's people talking about people's podcasts and turning them into like narratives and like takedown videos.
Yes.
And getting numbers that most of us would kill to have.
Great numbers. I watch a lot of them. Here, I have a couple theories on this, and we did discuss this, and it was a great conversation. I almost texted you the other day, like, that was killer.
Yeah.
It was just me and you at like 2 a.m. talking at the cellar.
It's great.
There's so many of these videos. I got so many thoughts on these videos because these people are putting hours of editing time. They have to go back, find the podcast, put it in, splice that, edit that, put that in a side-by-side, then go back to doing a voiceover, then cut all this shit with music. They make it dramatic like it's a fucking murder doc.
Yeah.
And they're
Thumbnail
all...
game through the roof.
Yes, Burt Kreischer's Cringe, Tom Segura's Lost It, and all these videos. But I think the reason they do it is because comedy is huge right now. Theo has Tucker Carlson on, or Dana White. These are giant guests. You're not going to get a conversation out of Tucker Carlson on Jimmy Fallon. So that interview's over. No one's watching that. But Theo Vaughn is doing it, and no one's covering it. There's no extra. There's no ET. There's no Access Hollywood extra. There's none of that for comedians, so they're cornering the market.
And yeah, it's such a big lightning rod now. People are doing arenas.
Yes.
People are, and again, getting these huge guests, doing all these numbers. And the way the YouTube algorithm works is it says, "Oh, you liked this? This is similar."
Right.
It's kind of like, "Oh, you liked this podcast? What did you hate about it?"
Yeah.
And it puts you into the same thing.
Totally.
And so there's a huge financial incentive to do it. And to your point, I think also a lot of people kind of you're familiar with all these characters.
Yes.
You know what's going on in the world, but who really has time to listen to, 100 different podcasts, says a guy launching a new podcast. But still, it's like people want to know what's going on without knowing all of it. And it's a little bit more interesting when you put it into that narrative format of like, this person, they all are like, these people are losing their fucking minds. And they're not wrong.
I know.
But like most people are.
And I watch a lot of them, but you're right. It's like you talk about Joe Rogan, obviously very popular. You put him in a video, Joe Rogan confronts Bobby Lee. And so you're like, now you have confronting, which is like attacking. Now you have Joe Rogan, you have Bobby Lee, you have all this big gumbo of popular shit, and it grabs the eye. Then you get a thumbnail where you're like,
And it's insane that it's getting like you who knows both people.
Yeah.
Like, a comedian who actually knows both human beings.
Yes.
You're like, holy shit, what happened? And then you watch it and you're like, okay, that was overblown. That was a fair point. That wasn't, like all this shit.
Sure.
But now once I've clicked on a few, it serves them to me all the time.
Same.
And it's hard to not watch them, but I do feel like it's damaging for your mental health to watch them.
Oh, yeah. Well, I
mean, it's interesting, but it's also if you're paying attention to your industry but only looking at like the negative aspects of certain people, and then you're walking around like, what's the fucking point?
Right. And it's clicky. It's all just clicky.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, wait, what happened to Tom Segura? Who'd he yell at? I kind of want to hear this. But then you watch 12 minutes and waste 12 minutes of your life, and you're like, I got like a nugget of information out of that I could have just texted Tom. But
it's like information porn. It's like
Yes.
you're left feeling empty. It's never is enough. You can get me. There's a dopamine hit that's like, ooh, what's in here? Ooh, I want to see it.
Well, it's more because porn, you actually nut. This
That's
is more
true.
like information and gossip strippers.
Yeah.
Where you're like, oh, that's enticing and looks great, but now I got to go home and rub one out. But that's the sad thing is like these guys, doing whatever they want to do. They're making a living off of it, making good money. Good for them. More power to you. It's a free country. But it is so gay. It's so Real Housewivey and like, ooh, I'm Andy Cohen. At least Andy Cohen is getting paid and he's on TV, in a suit talking to all these dumb reality stars on Top Deck or Top Shelf, whatever the fuck, Upper Deck.
Yeah.
What's it called? The boat
Below
one?
Deck.
Below Deck.
Yes.
Upper Deck is where you shit in the top of the tank.
Top, which is a move.
Yes, that's a show I want to see. Upper Deck.
And that would make a great thumbnail. Bert Kreischer, Upper Decks, Tom Segura's tour bus.
Yes, but it's so like, hey, we're gossiping and we're drama queens and we're covering. It's like Perez Hilton at some point. So I'm like, come on, what are we doing
and
here?
that's the space that it's filling. And it's objectively, it's a lower form of art to create and consume. But to your point, I like. If I'm watching it, it's clearly good enough.
That's true, and I watch it too.
And there are people who enjoy watching podcasts, and have somehow found a way to make a living off of just watching podcasts. That would have been an insane thing to tell you was going to happen, like even 5 years ago. I feel
completely.
I feel like this year is
like
when it all
SportsCenter.
started.
Yeah, it feels like it. They've always had him, like the Sunny V2 guy. He's huge.
And I watch those because I don't know like the YouTube world. And so it'll be like the downfall of like, that's how I learned about like Fousey. And then he went on this whole thing and I was kind of glad I was clued into it.
Yeah, he's good. He's very like fact-based.
Yeah.
The other ones, they get a little too opinionated and a little too, I'm in my mom's basement and I'm bitter.
I think that's the key is like if they put their thumb too much on the scale and they say like shitty things, I kind of have to turn it off.
Same.
But when they play it fair and at the end of it, you're like, I respect that man's logic.
Yes.
Then I feel like I can accept it.
Completely agree. So keep doing your thing, guys or gals. But let's keep it less biased.
Yeah, I think that's it. I wonder if, like you said, it's always happened, and I don't know this man, so I don't want to like go into a whole thing about it. But I can't help but feel like this is a cottage industry that is kind of based off of what happened to Schaub and his career and like Reddit taking off.
Yeah.
And then it turned into this like people realized that comedy TMZ was a thing and turned this man's life into like their own narrative format.
See, right now there's some nerd going, hold on, he said Schaub. What's the time code? Let me write that down. So they're already doing
Thankfully,
it. They can't help
like 25, well, you never know.
23 of those views are going to be from YouTuber guys.
Yeah, I know. But it's hard to like, you want to just it's hard because there are topics that you want to avoid for a lot of reasons, but then it's like, what else are we talking about?
I
Like,
know. And it's funny, too, because they'll be like, Andrew Santino sold out, and now he's doing this, this, and this. MeUndies.com. Follow my Patreon. You're like, we're all guilty of it. So, look, these guys think they're above comics or whatever, or think they're calling out comics for being inconsistent, but they have their inconsistencies too. And then eventually somebody will make a YouTube video about the YouTubers.
Right.
And it'll just keep going and going and going.
It's
so,
like, did you ever see Bo Burnham's special?
Inside?
The Inside.
Yeah, that was great.
He had one where it's basically, it's the reaction to the reaction to the reaction to the reaction,
funny.
and it's like, that's literally what's happening.
He's so smart. Yeah, he's great. But
he's unbelievable.
He's a brilliant guy. But yeah, the shop thing is tough because you're like, well, here's what I want to ask the YouTuber guys. Do they love comedy or do they hate comedy? Because I think they love it. I think they love it in a way where they're like, I love it so much, it's almost like a comic book nerd who's like, I fucking love Iron Man. Did you see the movie? Fuck that movie. And I'm like,
Right.
well, you love Iron Man. Why'd you hate the movie? Because they got one thing wrong in the plot or the origin.
Well, but I'm a sports fan.
Yes.
And I think what we're now just seeing is everyone's empowered to add commentary publicly, but it's like, I'm a sports fan. I'm a Niners fan. I don't know when this will come out, but they're on their way to being in the Super Bowl. And I like pull up one of the posts and it's just negativity. Just people like shitting on Brock Purdy because he's not even good. He just took a team to the Super Bowl. And it's like, it's to your point. If you're a fan of something and you've invested so much time into it, you want to have an opinion. And the most interesting opinions aren't usually like, that was great.
That's
like,
true.
in fact, Bo Burnham's special, unbelievable. And both of us were like, unbelievable, great.
Moving on.
Next, what are we going to say about that? Sit
Well,
here and like stroke it? But
this is why I critique my wife. I'm like, it's because I love you. No, but you're right. You're
if
right.
I stop coaching you hard, it means I don't care. That's what the coaches would always say.
Yes,
to me.
exactly. So right now they're going to watch this, and I'm nervous they're going to make a mean video about me or us or this pod. But
who knows?
you got to just
People
live your life.
People are going to hate you if it does make sense to me because I spend more time thinking about it than I should. But I think it's an odd concept because people get into stand up because obviously they like being liked. That's what you go on stage. You're making people laugh. That's what you want to happen. And then you finally get success and everyone's like, you fucking suck. And you're like, if you're a good comedian, you're like, I know most of the ways in which I suck. I assure you.
Of course.
But
it's the internet's way. They're allowed to do it. We're allowed to shit on them. They're allowed to shit on us. And a lot of comments are like, fucking take their YouTube down. I don't agree with that.
No.
Just know that you have feelings, I have feelings, and you got to take your lumps, or you can just not look at it.
If you want 1 million people to watch something that you made, it is unrealistic to assume that some of them aren't going to despise you.
Of course.
Just as a matter of human chemistry. Like, I walk around with this haircut. You know what I mean? Like, I know that there are people who just see me and they're like, fuck that guy.
Right.
And that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's okay. It's inevitable.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do?
Yeah.
So keep making your shit. But let me ask you, the Chiefs going to the Super Bowl, probably.
Yep. Well, they're in the Super Bowl.
Oh, they're in the Super Bowl.
Niners, Chiefs. At the time of this recording, game has not happened, but it is set.
And it's in 2 weeks?
It is a week from Sunday.
A week from Sunday. Okay, so about a week and a half. Do you think the CIA set the whole thing up?
What do you mean, why?
Well, it's Taylor Swift. I'm no conspiracy queef, but do you think the Taylor Swift train is full speed ahead on the tracks? Choo-choo! They got the Kelsey hookup. Now they're dating. Now they're going to the Super Bowl. She's going to do something big. Maybe he'll propose. Maybe she'll say, I'm voting for RFK Jr. Something's going to happen.
And that's when we bomb Iran.
Yes.
Like, I mean, look, no. Like, first of all, who is Taylor Swift supposed to fuck? Because anytime she's with anybody, people lose their minds. Mm-hmm. It makes sense to me that she would want to fuck Travis Kelce. The fact that he would want to fuck her is a little more interesting. He's always stricken me as a guy to be more interested in perhaps a fuller and perhaps a darker, let's say a tanner.
Yes. Well, he likes a curvy black chick.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't even know if Taylor has that as a backup dancer.
That's a good point.
And
she likes a twinky, skinny guy like me.
Yeah, but they're both like, maybe. That could be a
Yes.
nice arc for you.
I'll ruin your life.
Yeah.
I'll break your heart
Yeah.
very easily.
The Chiefs are too good of a. I mean, they've been to the
I
Super
know.
Bowl all these years, and it's Kansas City. I think the most interesting thing about it is watching how much it has like melted people's brains.
Sure.
People are so many people are like, I'm not even fucking watching this game. I'm sick of Taylor Swift. I'm sick of Brock Purdy. It's like, okay, well then, did you ever like football? Like, what did you expect?
Good point. I completely agree. Like, I get it. They're cutting to her every other play, but
It's
I'm like,
not even that.
who cares?
bad. Well, and then she did Joe Coy so dirty when he made that kind of innocuous joke about her,
yeah.
and she bitch faced him, and then they all turned on him. Now, granted, it's the same thing. Turned on him, canceled selling out arenas.
Yeah.
Increased exposure. But
I do think she is. I think she is void of humor because she go YouTube this. She's on Ellen a bunch, like when she was starting to really blow up, and Ellen is being like Ellen's got her thing. We all know that.
Yep.
But you are what you eat, cunt.
Yeah.
But she's being mean and pokey as every late night host does, and she's just not even getting it. Like she's like, "What do you mean? What? I don't understand." Oh, wait, what? And I'm like, wow, you don't even get what she's trying to do here. You're that out to lunch.
She doesn't seem real. Like, I don't understand. Like, the music, I do understand. I've listened to it. Like, she's not my favorite of all time, but like, I threw on her latest album. I was like, great.
Oh, really?
I mean, dude, it's solid stuff.
Okay,
I was
great.
like at the gym, like lifting to it. I was like, there's some irony to this that feels good. I don't know, but it's good music. It's plenty fine. But like when I just see her as a person, that's when like, here's what I would say: the CIA has nothing to do with the Kansas City Chiefs being good or going to the Super Bowl. Is Taylor Swift a CIA plant?
That's really what I'm talking about.
She herself, as a human being, might have been co-opted.
Oh, I thought maybe
She might be the next Jeffrey Epstein.
She does have a lot of young girls on board.
Yeah.
But I think they put her with him because they knew the team was going far. And then he likes it because he's like, there's a whole...
Now his podcast is popular.
Exactly. And he told his agent or his publicist or whatever 10 years ago. You ever heard this story? He was pointing at a billboard of The Rock. This is 10, 12 years ago. And he's like, I want to be that. I want to be that famous. And the publicist was like, you got it. Just give me a few years and we'll make it happen. And then here we are.
My one question is, why would you want to be that famous? Like,
I don't know.
winning a bunch of Super Bowls and then like just like having Super Bowls in a podcast should be plenty.
Yes.
You have to be The Rock. Like, it doesn't look fun to be The Rock.
No. Well, everybody wants to be famous. Look at everybody's jumping in the middle of traffic and planking and all the chugging, licking toilet seats just to get clicks.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, I've dedicated the last decade of my life to try, but it is different
it's a
when
skill.
you're like, I have a thing that I
Yes.
want to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, this is totally different than just like...
It is totally different, but like he's got a skill, like football.
That's true, but
he's trying to parlay it into another thing.
Yeah, I agree with you. The football should be enough.
Yeah, but it does end, which makes it like a lot of them are like trying to figure out what happens after it ends and how do you keep relevance. And I mean, I don't know. You have enough money, you can make anything happen. But to want to be a movie star, it doesn't seem that fun.
No, movie star is brutal. We are so lucky we get to be comedians. Like, I was watching Golden Globes, and the Oscars are coming up, then the Spirit Awards, and then the Horseshit Awards, and Bradley Cooper is at all of them, and I'm like, he has to go to that.
Yeah.
That sucks.
Yeah.
We don't have to do that.
Yeah, that sounds horrible, although it would be fun to go to that as Bradley Cooper.
I guess,
Because,
yeah.
I mean, if you walk in and everyone's just... I don't know. I really don't know how I feel about this, because on the one hand, if you walk in and everyone thinks you're the man and you're getting everything, that's kind of a cool feeling.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, what if you're having like an off day?
Of course.
What if you're like, I feel kind of weird. This is like fishbowl-y. Like, I don't
Yes.
like this.
Any obligation. Like, I saw Larry David. Curb is coming out. He's like my hero. And he, some interviewer was like, Larry, what are you wearing? You're on the red carpet. And he goes, I'm kind of sick of interviewing. I'm out. I'm like pooped. And he was like, sorry, I got nothing left. And he just walked away. And I was like, That's a comedian.
Dude, he's the fucking greatest.
He's the greatest, and it's also why the show is still on the air, because it's just him. Just let him go. Yeah, enough with the committee.
This is the last season, I believe.
Yeah.
I was listening to an interview with him. I love when he has to come out and make the rounds, because I know he doesn't like it, but all of it's like precious to me.
Yeah, same.
Because he's just so himself.
Yes.
Like, it's just, I don't like this. That's okay. Why would I do that?
Yeah. Did you see the meme some girl wrote? Taylor Swift, the reason all these women like her is because she's speaking to our soul. She's saying exactly what we're thinking. Do men have someone like that? And everyone put Larry David. Everyone put Larry David or Norm Macdonald. Those were the two.
That's basically it.
Yeah.
It's just no bullshit. Like, I think so many people would have Curb is a great example of a show that if you took any input, it wouldn't work. Because they would be like, don't do scenes at your country club. That's not relatable.
Right.
What is it? You're just being famous and like going to your country club, and he's like, that's what I do.
So true. Yeah. Can we make your wife Asian this season? You're like, well, she's been. What are you talking about? Let's go Asian. He's like, no, that would be weird. That would change the whole show.
He said the podcast. He was on Bill Simmons, like a sports pod that I listened to.
I saw that.
Yeah. One of the questions that he asked him that I thought was super interesting is he was like, did you ever have to take notes?
Uh-huh.
And he basically said the first Seinfeld meeting they went into some, NBC producer, and he gave him all these notes. And Larry basically turned to Jerry and was like, I'm out. Like, I can't do this. And they hadn't even been on air yet.
Whoa.
And then they just stopped giving them notes for like several years. Then it got successful. And then they tried to do it one more time. And he said, I just no. And they just let it go. He just said no, and that was it, and that's why the show's good. It would have sucked.
Yeah, and it did have its rocky start, obviously, but they figured it out, and you can't really do that with TV now. You can't figure it out. It's like a comedy act. You got to find your voice and find the jokes and try the bad ones to get to the good
there's so many shows now. It's just like, it's not it. Keep it moving until something sticks.
And they're so scared of risk.
So it's I know Seinfeld is one of your main influences.
Oh, yeah.
But we're in a very new era of comedy. It's like podcasting, putting out a YouTube special immediately and like year over year.
Clips.
TikTok. Do you wish it was still sitcom days? And would your goal still be to have a sitcom, or do you not give a shit about that?
That's a great question there. I think my agent told me, he's like, man, if this was 1996, all your friends would have sitcoms, like Chris D, Sam, all these guys. And Soder, but I was like, oh yeah, that is kind of nice. But now that those days are over, I'm kind of glad, because I don't think I'd want a sitcom.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like
it's a lot of work. You can't be. I hate acting. I hate memorizing lines. I want to be myself. Like a Tosh.0 would be way more up my anal, because you get to be you. You get to be a little darker.
Even
you
that
telling
feels
jokes
like somehow all of a sudden antiquated. Like,
that's true.
How would you do that? Like, he now does a podcast,
and it's a killer pod.
Did you see his open letter to Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah, that was funny.
God, it was so
funny.
good.
He's such a natural,
Yeah.
But yeah, so I don't know. I would want to do. See, I'm such a lazy queef. I would want to do like voiceover for Family Guy, and then just go to their studio, knock it out, get your paycheck, be on a TV show, be funny, and then go back to my life.
Yeah. That makes sense.
The sitcom consumes you. Like, it takes you got to write it, you got to cast it, you got to be in it, and then you got to promote it, and it's
a whole thing, and for something that people don't really even seem to value as much anymore. Like, the last comic to do a traditional sitcom, would that be Gerard?
Oh, I guess so.
Because he did that. He was like, I'm gonna do like the CBS like sitcom multicam live audience show.
I guess you're right. Yeah, and that was actually pretty good. And I think he cut it. He ended it. But
yeah, I mean, because probably it's too much, and he needs to like
a Curb
make
would be
art
fun.
house films about like a leaf falling and being gay with his mom.
Yeah, he's got to keep coming out. It's the only chance he's got. But yeah, no, you're right. I don't know. That's a good question. So my agent's always like, "What's the next thing? You can't do stand up forever." And I'm like, "Well, I hope to." And he's like, "I know, but you don't want to be doing the funny bone when you're 65." And I'm like, "I guess you're right, but I don't know what." He's like, "What's the passion? What's the drive?" So me and Sam are writing a movie. That's something.
That's awesome.
we'll see how that goes.
Right.
But
yeah, I guess I should wait till I know if it's good.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. That's a great question because what would you want to do? Do you have a thing where you're like, this is if my passion project? If I got $1 zillion and the green light, what would you make?
I'm kind of the same as you. Like, if they asked me that, I would be like, great question. Let me think about it for a little bit because it's kind of the old Mitch Hedberg joke. It's
yes.
Like I'm going to butcher it, but it's like I don't think he's doing it anymore, so we can give it a shot. It's like you come to, you're like a chef and you get to Hollywood and you're like, great, you're a cook. Can you, I don't know.
Can you farm?
Can you farm?
That's
yeah,
the big
something like
punchline.
that. Whatever the point is, it's like, yeah, I don't know. I got into comedy to do comedy, and I think there's a lot of other things you learn how to do in the pursuit of that. Like, podcasting is interesting and it's comedy adjacent. You get to talk to people in a longer format than you would at a club. You get to be funny. I want to try different things with this, like sketch things, little vignettes. I wrote like a silly song for the first one that I did.
That's
and like,
cool.
Just like try different creative things. But in terms of anything, the way that I think about it, it's to try and feed back into the doing of stand-up, which is what we are.
I know. Even Seinfeld, like Comedians in Cars, as weird of a show idea as that is, Comedians in Cars and coffee, getting coffee, that seems like a cool, fun thing. You're hanging out with comics, you're drinking coffee, you're driving your cars you bought. That was cool.
Yeah.
But that's very minimal. There's no acting. There's no writing. There's no lines.
But that's kind of...
It's a podcast.
It is, but it's kind of the right idea. It's actually, I would say it's almost ahead of its time because podcasts are like complexifying themselves as everyone's competing for space in the YouTube area. I mean, you look at Flagrant is like a fucking daytime talk show when you look at the set and all that. And so I think Seinfeld, that's kind of what people are going to do. It's like, it can be a really niche, unique, weird concept, but if it finds its zone on the internet, that's literally all you need. That's probably more impactful than him being in a movie right now.
Yeah.
Like, because people watch an episode every week. It's the things he actually likes. He likes cars. He likes coffee. It's all these little cross sections.
Right. That's true.
We should get into like ASMR. I don't know. Like, get really weird into shit. But like, I don't know. I think talking and being myself is, your brain can only work in a certain way. Like, I don't know if I speak through characters or like narrative structure the way that some people do. So
like Gillis though has the Gillian Keeves, and I couldn't do that.
Yeah,
I couldn't do that. Like sketches and then going out there and acting them. I could probably be in one and be a hobo or something, but to sit there and write it, then produce it and act it and film it and edit it, I couldn't do it. But he likes sketch and. Great. There you go.
He would have been so good on it.
I know. He'll be back on there at some point.
I mean, he's literally better off. I know he hates that. I'm not saying that. But, like, he is more creatively empowered not being within the structure of that show. And 100%. That's what led to Gillian Keeves, which was a huge turning point. But
and now he's the Bud Light guy, so he's doing just fine.
Doing just fine.
They went from trans to trans fat.
Yeah,
that's my dumb Bud Light Shane Gillis joke.
Yeah, I'll add a laugh track to that. That is actually another question that I had for you because I think it's very related. Like comedy, like I feel like your brain can only work in a certain way. Like you have a very distinct stand-up style.
Oh, really?
Well, you know that. You have your jokes per minute is much higher than the average special. I haven't run the numbers, but I'm sure we could add metrics here.
I'll take it.
I mean, you rifle through like premises that I mean, when I watched your Netflix special, you would like set something up, deliver a perfect punch, move it on 45 seconds, and I'm like, if I had thought of that premise, I would be sitting there for like 4 minutes. Like,
yeah, well, you might be better. That might be a better move.
It might be easier. But like, do you think that you developed that, or do you think that your brain like more or less only has the way that you're going to do stand-up?
That's another good one there, haircut. I think you got to do what you do. Like I've had people, like a lot of Boston comics can really milk a bit, like you're saying. I've had Joe List be like, "There's a lot more meat on that bone. You're really leaving more on the table there." And I'm like, I don't know. I almost look at a joke like a fist fight. Like I got in there, I knocked the guy out. I'm getting out of there. Yeah. I don't want to just come on. Let's go again. Get up, pussy. I want to get in, get out. And I got a big laugh. I made my point. I wrapped it up nicely with a bow on it. So it's fear. It's fear of like, okay, well, I got a good laugh on this premise, this joke. So if I add new stuff to it, that might not work, and that might actually get less laughs.
Right.
So it's fear of that, and then it's just I like rapid fire because, again, probably fear again. I'm so worried about boring them. And stand-up is on paper is pretty boring. It's a guy or a girl standing on stage talking.
Yeah.
There's some movement here and there, but you're really just
It's
painting
like
a picture.
Class.
It's class. It's a TED Talk with jokes or punchlines. So I'm all about quick, just don't let them get bored. And when I started, I got heckled a lot. I think I'm very non-threatening. I'm a queef. I'm a twink. I'm a dweeb. So I would go up there and be like, shut up, bitch, or keep moving, homo, or whatever. So I'm like, let me have so many punchlines they can't get in there.
Did you start in New York?
I started in New Orleans, but I did 8 months or something.
Because there's not really there's not even a staple club down, to my knowledge.
No club, no nothing.
That seems like a crazy miss.
They open and close. It's just not a comedy town. People go there for a bachelor party or Mardi Gras or Jazz Fest. They want to party. They want to dance. They don't want to listen to our thoughts on
That is good. You
cereal.
don't want a bachelor party. But so New York was where you moved from there.
Yeah.
I do feel like that is a New York style. Like I have been doing it for 10 years. We I came up a bunch of places. I don't have to get into all of it, but it was California generally, San Diego, San Francisco, all that. And I feel like I approach a joke where I'll be walking around and I'll have a thought that I think is relatively interesting or philosophical. Mm-hmm. And then I kind of learned how to make it interesting enough and sell it on stage enough that it would kind of work.
Yeah.
And then later was oh, this shit sucks. I need to make it a joke. But even still, the way that I write is from this desire to express I think I've had a minor epiphany.
Yeah.
And then now I just have a higher process for what I allow to get out, and I
right.
know what'll make it funnier.
I think that's completely normal.
It's funny. It's just a totally different way of approaching it. You're I'm in a fucking knife fight. I got to get this out. And I'm ooh, what if I can say something kind of interesting and find a way to make it funny?
I think that's a great approach. Mike Birbiglia said, don't write what's funny, write what's interesting and make it funny.
Right.
Because now you're getting funny and you're getting the brains of the audience to be ooh, they're stimulated. And I think that's good.
And it doesn't really matter how you started because at the end of it, you're going to have to figure out how to do both or you'll suck.
Yes, exactly.
You're going to have to figure out how to make the mathy equations interesting emotionally.
Right.
Or whatever your thoughts are, you're going to have to add the formula to some extent.
The problem is a lot of people take your approach and never get to the funny part. They just ride off of that interest. They're I was molested. And then it just fizzles out with no laugh. And you're I get it. You were molested. You're being open and vulnerable and real, but this is called a comedy club.
Right.
You got to make the ha-has come out.
You have to be met with a certain amount of resistance or you won't build the muscle. It's literally like lifting.
It
you
is.
have to have
completely.
You build the muscle by resistance. And so there's so many moments where I've gotten off stage and been what the fuck am I doing? I'm so bad. Something's wrong with me.
Right.
But that's what drives you to actually write.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You got to do it. For me, it's think of a funny thing, try it on stage, it bombs, rewrite it, try it again. It does a little better, but it's still bombing. And that fear and that pain of the humiliation of bombing will motivate me to write.
Yeah. But you have to have the right amount of it because some people are so afraid that they don't try new things.
Yeah, there is that.
Which is, this is a very comedy-heavy episode that we're doing. But I think that's true for pretty much everything. If you're not willing to eat shit on things, and I have known that, and I've done stand-up and failed and kept going and moved on, but I have to remind myself of that every day because you get comfortable and you're oh, I don't want to try that. People are going to hate it. People are going to hate me. I shouldn't do anything.
Got to do it.
Yeah.
But that's why I think comedy is such a cool life is because, they always say, do something every day that scares you. Well, a new bit scares the shit out of me or a new room or a special or a taping or whatever. That's all terrifying. I did The Beacon. I was terrified. But you do it.
I feel like I live in a constant state of wanting to do something so that I can finally feel relaxed and then moving on to the next thing where I'm horrified again.
Yeah, that's
always
life.
Anxiety. You just did The Beacon. I bet 2 days before you're oh fuck, this is gonna be crazy. Then you do it. You finish the Saturday show. You're holy shit, I did it. I assume go out, have some drinks, celebrate that night.
Yep.
Now I can finally relax. You wake up 2 days later. Well, you wake up and then 2 days later you have anxiety about a new joke that you're going to do.
Exactly.
Because I just did all that shit. I really need to do the next thing.
And just think how much more stimulating and interesting. I'm not trying to say comics are cool and we have it better than everyone else. It's horrible too. We bomb and eat shit and we're poor for years. But think about some guy who works in accounting or works at fucking IKEA.
Yeah.
Every day wakes up, goes to IKEA, gets a paycheck, maybe goes to the gym, maybe gets laid. That's kind of your just general, hey, the Super Bowl's here, cool, Christmas, cool. But you're kind of just this general malaise, and stability is great, and that's how people want to live their lives, but I just couldn't do it.
Well, I know because I've kind of done both. Like, for the whole time I was coming up, I've had day jobs, and so I still had this exciting thing with stand-up, and I remember my first job, I had to, like, dress nice, so I would put, like, a hat that I would wear backwards because of my like long hair phase, and like a cool shirt, and I would go to a mic every night after the job.
Oh yeah.
Put it all in my backpack. But I also got the experience of doing something that I didn't like. A lot of people have fulfilling jobs, but they're all stressful. But doing something I didn't like, feeling beaten to death all day with an anxiety I didn't even want.
Oh yeah.
And it's what you said. You really look forward to. I was like, I can't wait for my team to be in the playoffs or something, which I still love, but at the time it was like lifeblood. I was like, I needed something else to care about because I hated what the fuck I was doing all the time.
Completely. I think a lot of people have kids for that reason. There's like something to do, and it's something interesting, and it's it's a beautiful thing, and it's amazing, and it's your child, and you love it. So that's great. I just think some people found their thing and have kids.
I think also having kids is probably very similar to the experience that we're describing, because it's like you wake up with anxiety. You're just hoping to get your kid to the next thing.
Yeah.
They do it. You're so proud.
Right.
You're so happy for them. You're willing to lose sleep over it.
Sure.
I think we understand it through stand-up, but I think there's a lot of ways to experience this sort of whatever this like life force is. That requires anxiety to like feel alive.
Yes, yeah. Well, we're fucked up. It's a preference.
But then you try
thing.
to avoid it because it's
That
like
too.
I can't wait to be done.
Yes,
then I'll finally be able to
yes.
relax. But then you go a few days without anything, and then the anxiety comes from a different level. Then it's
Yeah.
like I'm not doing enough. What should I be doing? I
Yes.
feel like
Oh,
lost.
that's the worst.
And my brain is a fog, and I'm like,
Yeah.
you do need purpose.
For the record, now I'm just thinking about all the YouTube guys who are going to make a video about this. We're not saying stand-up is as cool as having a kid and giving birth to someone. We're not saying that. Just saying like it's a preference thing. We found a thing we love and are excited about, and it's a compulsion. You almost have to get up there, versus other people might not have found it, and it's devastating. It's so lucky to find your thing. That's really a true gift.
This is how I know we're in the new like cancellation era, because instead of qualifying, hey, I know not all ladies, or I know not all this, now we're like, hey, I'm not saying the only thing that matters is, I'm not saying that. Everyone is equal, and we're all great, and we're not special. And
well, you just don't want to come off as pretentious. It's not like a cancel thing. You just don't want to be like, oh, look at us artists here. I hate all that shit. So I'm just saying, like, we're very lucky, and some people like a little chaos, and it's a preference thing.
Yeah. Do you think it has changed? Because like I hear all these cool stories about another thing Larry David was saying is he was like, back in the 70s, the New York scene was every night you're at a club, and obviously I haven't been here that long. I'm not in it, all the clubs. I'm like slowly working in all that. But like he was like, it was every night we're at a club 7 to 11. Everyone would basically go out. We would all eat or drink or whatever. You'd stay up till 3 or 4 every night.
Yeah.
You'd wake up at 1, and then you'd get up and do it again. And then there was like a comedian softball league, and that was like the only other thing you'd do. But you were at the club every night, and you all hung out after, and everyone was going to bed at 3 or 4 every night, and that was just what it was. I feel like now it's like there's just a lot more normal business-like demands of the normal comic schedule. And so it's kind of like, if you get a good hang-in, that's a beautiful, precious thing.
Agreed.
But a lot of times it's like, I got to get back, I got to edit, I got to wake up, I got to whatever.
I think it's a good question. I think the core of it is still there. That Larry David going to the Improv all night, every night, hanging out, drinking. I think that is still there. But now the difference is the gatekeeper thing is kind of dying, and we get to make our own future, which is for good and for bad. Some people put out a special when they're 2 weeks into comedy.
Right.
Like, here's my new hour on YouTube. So you need a little gatekeeping, because people aren't willing to put their own governor on their career. They're just like, I'll put anything out. Here's me yelling at a lady at Chucklefucks in Idaho. Put it on TikTok. You're like, maybe don't put it on TikTok, but I need content. Well, hang on. There's no rush, but
it's hard to, that's a whole nother thing.
It's a whole nother thing. But I think the core is still there, and the real comedy is still there, and the cream rises and all that. But I do think we're running our own businesses now, which we didn't do before. Like, you're managing all these different platforms. Your podcast clip has to come out. Your podcast has to come out. You need a new one for Instagram. You got to tweet something.
Yeah.
So there's all these extra things you didn't have to do before. Before we wrote the jokes, we gave it to industry people, and they did it. And now there's this weird middle ground where, like, I was talking to Tim Dillon, and he was like, he told me an idea for a show, and I was like, this is brilliant. You got to go make that. And he's like, well, I pitched it. Nobody really got into it. I tried a Hulu and Amazon. And I was like, fuck them. Put it on the internet. And he was like, I don't want to do it, though. I don't want to get cameras.
Right.
They have cameras. They have lights. They have grips. They have promo factories that do all this shit. So there is this weird middle ground where we're like, are we all independent, or are we still relying on them a little?
It does change you when you are all of a sudden like you're acting like a CEO, because you kind of are. Like you said, you have the ability to make anything you want. You can do something creative, but that ability means getting on the phone with a bunch of people, doing this, and it takes you out of that artist brain that is just like, let's be creative and crazy and give it to the fucking suits to figure out.
But the suits are nice.
Well, that's the thing is now we have. It's not like the idea of sitting on Carson's couch and now you're famous and everyone gives you everything is obviously gone.
That's over.
Hollywood still exists, and if you can get them to make something great, and if not, you have another option, and that's great too.
I guess that's a better way to look at it.
But I think even the idea of like if Tim's right, they have all the cameras and they have all that shit, but like once you're managing their full, unionized workforce, you're still gonna be fucked.
Yeah, that's true, but can they come out? Am I crazy? Why hasn't the internet gotten on this? Just make a production company that has no relation to anything and just they'll make it. Like, why is there an internet Hulu? You see what I'm saying? Like, they have all the cameras, they have the warehouses, they have all the shit, and they'll just put it out online.
So two things. One, I think there probably are a lot of production companies that will like white label stuff like that.
But put it out as well. Not just shoot it, not just edit it, but like, because they always get these production companies go, we'll shoot it, we'll edit it, and then we'll try to sell it to Amazon.
Right.
And I'm like, well, why don't you just put it out?
Right.
Am I too ignorant to know if that's possible?
I'll have to see if I have to bleep this or not, but Kyle, who started Don't Tell Comedy.
Perfect example.
That's one of their like they're not there yet, but like a large scale vision is like, we're doing these short comedy things. We'll eventually do like they're already taping people's full specials, but they'd like to become a production company that's like, can we do a show? Can we do a pilot? Can it turn into something? I think that stuff's going to happen.
The problem is they still need YouTube. YouTube is just we act like it's this independent thing, and it's more independent than Netflix because you can just put shit on it. But it's still a thing that can take you down, that can strike you or whatever.
Right.
So I'm talking just a full-on website.
Oh, like a Funny or Die, but they do the production.
Oh yeah, that's a good example. All right.
Well,
Funny or Die.
I don't know I don't know what they're up to these days.
I don't know either, actually. They kind of came and went. But
but like an A24 for independent comedy stuff that had their own website that you paid $3 a month for.
Yes, exactly.
Make it vertical, call it Quibi.
I pitched to them and they bought my idea, then they folded.
Did you get the money still?
We got the money.
Okay. Hey, that's good. That's great.
Yeah. Quibi. The names are it's Quibi, Tubi, Hulu. The names are getting a little too wacky.
It's odd. Yeah. Because they're tech companies that are trying to do, and so they still have the very San Francisco ethic of let's be a
true form. Is that what? Free form.
The first time I ever tried to do like a high produced sketch, I'll never forget it. It was at this first job, so this would have been like 2015, 2014, and I was working in tech. I was doing sales recruiting, and so I was going in, I was meeting at all these tech companies, and I would see these crazy offices, and we all have ping pong.
Yeah.
and I'm sure someone's done it since, but in 2014, it was a novel concept. I wrote a sketch, and it was a commercial for an app called Wiper, and it was basically like on demand. Someone would come wipe your ass for you.
Oh,
it was
wow.
like a Uber joke, and
Yeah.
I spent all this time. I cast people. I did this whole thing. I got this guy to shoot it who I'd met, who was my Uber driver, but he ran a production company, and I was like, this is gonna be fucking it. And the shoot looked great, and then it came back, and he had fucked up the sound, and it was completely unusable.
Damn.
Yeah, the perils of self-production.
See, that's no one wants to deal with that part.
No.
To the Tim Dillon point, but that's what I'm saying. Some nerd has to get together and make a giant platform that you write a movie, you shoot the movie, give it to them, and they'll put it up.
Yeah, I love it.
That's the future.
I love it. Well, I don't want to take too much of your time. Thank you for doing this, Mark. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, and thanks to all the YouTube queefs out there. We're gonna make a video cutting all this up.
Going. Anything you want to plug?
Yeah, I got 2 podcasts. We Might Be Drunk and Tuesdays with Stories. Soup to Nuts on Netflix. Gatekeeper. And yeah, come see me live. I'm all over the road. MarkNormanComedy.com.
Cool. And then I want to try one thing, but I didn't want to interrupt the flow.
Sure.
And the premise here, because I know you like Seinfeld, but we ended up talking a lot about the modern day podcast. This is Seinfeld if it was in the modern era, and he was doing a podcast about cancel culture, and he wanted to talk about the word retarded.
Okay.
Okay. So you can just be Jerry.
You know, I was thinking about something the other day. Retarded.
Don't get me started on them, Jerry.
Not the people, the word. I mean, it just means being a little behind. What's so bad about that?
I'm behind every day of my life, Jerry.
But if I called you retarded...
Frankly, Jerry, to say that in this climate, you'd have to be a little. Kramer walks in.
Speak of the devil.
Don't say that word, Jerry.
Oh, forget it.
Don't do it, Jerry. I said it once at the Laugh Factory. They canceled me, Jerry. Canceled me.
Not that word. The R word.
That's the problem, Jerry. You're supposed to use an A at the end.
That's great. Okay. That's really funny.
We'll see. So I'm going to add in like laughs and shit. And
That's gold. I mean, it felt like the scene.
Okay, good.
That was killer.
Okay, monologue topic for today. Want to put it at the end because it's kind of related to nothing, but style. Okay, I want to talk about fashion. I live in New York now. Fashion Week is coming up. Will I be involved? Absolutely not. I'm out of the game. But I have picked up on some new things, and the thing that is fascinating to me right now is the current baggy pants trend. I'm not going to sit here and old man it and pretend you like I'm above it. I'm never going to do that. I have 2 pairs. One I was given, realized, can I pull it off? I have no idea. Been trying it. The other one, I bought. Yeah, I bought baggy pants because I'm part of Gen Z. No cap, on God. You know what I mean? I don't want to say I'm trying to keep up, but when I see something come back into style, I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah, that makes sense to me. I've seen it deployed well. And the problem that I realized very quickly with the baggy style, which I should have remembered from when I was a young man, is that I'm short. Dude, wearing baggy clothes when you're short is kind of tough, dude. I look like one of the fucking ghosts in the Pac-Man game. I'm just kind of like wandering around like beep, 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 like, you know, trying to eat berries and shit. That's not good. That's not sexy. I don't need to be sexy, but it's like when you're wearing clothes, you want to look cool. And like, I think it kind of looks cool, but it's not great for my physique. Like I'm not trying to hide it, I'll try to, but like, dude, when I'm short, I look like a show dog. I look like an ottoman. I'm just kind of like shuffling around. I'm a little ghost boy. And it's funny because most of the kids wearing the like baggy pants now kind of look like ghosts too, in that they are very pale white. I've seen a lot of people bringing back baggy, and let me tell you, as someone who grew up in the early 2000s, I would just say the people who brought back baggy this time, a little bit more suburban. It's like a bunch of like little boys from London who should have like tiny earrings and their hair's like this, and they're wearing like little boots and they've got their baggies on and that right. They're pale, and it looks like all the blood's drained out of their face, but I know that it hasn't due to tight pants because they got a lot of room down there. It is more comfortable. So I'm here for it, and I like the way it looks, but I just catch myself at a certain angle, and I'm like, what the fuck is that? Like, what shoes do you style them with? It feels like it makes me want to have a giant pair of shoes that I can just, like, tuck them into, because otherwise I'm just, like, pitter-pattering around like a geisha. It doesn't make sense to me. But at the same time, I can't stop. Because now that I've seen that baggy's in, I can't go too tight. So I guess you just go in between ground. Is that what you're supposed to do? I don't know. We're going to figure it out. Fashion is a tough one for me because the actual fashion game doesn't make sense. But I'm also not one of those guys who's just like, I just wear whatever's comfortable, bro. I'm not fucking gay. I just like, all that matters is comfort. It's like, that's not true. If all that mattered was comfort, I'd be wearing a loincloth. Unless it was chilly. Otherwise, it's like, yeah, that's comfortable. I'm not wearing shit. But it's like, I like this. This is comfortable, but I like the patterns. I like applying some thought to it. I like that feeling of like putting something on and being like, ooh, that's a thing. You put something on, you're just like, who did that? Not me. Okay. Like, that's how I like to leave the house. Which just put me in an interesting predicament sometimes. I'll be sitting there with my wife, and it's like, she's like, are you ready to go? And I'm like, which shoes? I will be honest. I lied. She's always later than me. But that being said, I do ask for opinions on everything, and that might delay her. These shoes, what do we think about this? What about this coat? I don't know if that's good or bad because I want to be like, no, I know, I have my own thing. But really it's like, what do we think? What do we think? What are we feeling? Because you just want to feel good when you leave. And I guess that's really all that matters. Baggy pants, skinny pants, as long as you feel good and you don't care that everyone else is making fun of you. Because even if you're wearing the cool thing, someone else is making fun of you. And that's kind of what fashion is. Determining who hates your look and who likes it, and signaling who you want to fit in with. Baggy pants. If it's good enough for the Ghost and Pac-Man, it's good enough for me. A big night last night, so we're just going to go ahead and get this one done from bed. Tour dates. Lots of tour dates coming all over the place, depending on when this comes out. Snowmass Village, Colorado, Salt Lake City, Washington, D.C., Norfolk, Nebraska, Batavia, Illinois, Carmel, California, San Luis Obispo. We got a lot more. Go to joeyavery.com for those. Also, yeah, if this is on my main YouTube channel, youtube.com/joeyavery, make sure to follow the podcast page, which is at The Joey Show Podcast. And, you know, I'm in New York. It's a slow morning. I feel like Sunday might be a day to take a day off of eating perfectly healthy. Not that I don't do that a lot, but I think I might go snag myself a bacon, egg, and cheese from somewhere and give it a nice little review on here. I think that would be fun. Stepping out into the harsh winter sunlight after going to sleep at 5 a.m. stung like the sword of a samurai preparing for seppuku, but we all must accept our fate with honor. The closest establishment to me was Kosar's, which I gave a serious thought to, but I opted for a smaller, lesser-known hole-in-the-wall spot around the corner called Flowers Cafe, because after drinking 8 Bud Lights the night before, I felt I'd supported big business enough. And given what people call you when you drink a Bud Light these days, Flowers seemed a little more on brand. Speaking of large corporations, that's who we actually have to thank for the bacon, egg, and cheese, since its origin dates back to the Industrial Revolution. It was the British factory workers in the 1800s who would purchase the original breakfast sandwich from street vendors on their way to get soot on their face and be yelled at by fat men wearing monocles. Their sandwich would have egg and some form of meat, bacon or sausage, or often just sausage grease. That sandwich was called the Bap sandwich, named after the soft rolls that held the egg and meat filling. This is not to be confused with Cardi B's WAP sandwich, which is a soggy wet roll filled with old fish and dollar bills. They say once a month, it tastes like a handful of pennies. But these days, the bacon, egg, and cheese is the hangover cure that has won our hearts. And this one's a beauty. Oh yeah, little bacon, egg, and cheese. This looks fire, don't it? Something about this looks to me like it's going to be a hell of a time. I mean, just looking at it, that's the exact ratio you want. You've got a nice cheesy layer blending through the egg and the bacon. Really, I think this sort of sandwich is all about proportions. You only have 3 ingredients, so you gotta nail them. Flours, I think, does. We're gonna have to give it a try. Let's see. That's unbelievable. Way too big of a bite for an actual show, but that is so good. I couldn't help myself. Wow, that's perfect. The key to this one is the American cheese that is melted everywhere, that brings the entire thing together. The everything bagel brings in the little saltiness, which complements it perfectly. If I was going to add anything, I'm a little slut for hot sauce, so I might do that, but I did not go wrong by going to flours today. This was fantastic. I guess I'll come up with a rating system. I don't know if anyone really gives a shit. I would just say go to flours, so I'm just going to say that's a thumbs up. If I had to rank it, I guess I'll give that an 8.6 for the first ever bacon, egg, and cheese rating, but that's going to be tough to beat. That was really, really good. Highly recommend that. In a fun, small place, and they grind in there. It's one of those spots where it's just Uber Eats drivers just coming in constantly, so people are ordering it, but go in there, pay them a visit. Really nice people. Fantastic bacon, egg, and cheese. I'm going to dust the hell out of that, and I hope you have a great day. And yeah, I went hot sauce. And there it is. That is the episode. Thank you for listening to The Joey Show. I really appreciate it. Let us know what you like. Let us know what you don't like. It's a new show. We want to try all sorts of things. One of the things we're trying, write into us, The Joey Show Podcast at gmail.com. Write in if you have questions for me, if you want advice on something, and specifically, if you want advice on game. If you're having trouble in a relationship, you're stuck on a text you need to send, you need a bio for your Tinder, write in, let me help. I never was part of the dating app game. I've been out of the game for a long time. Does that mean I might miss? Probably not. I'm a fucking legend. So give it a shot. Write in. We'll help you out. And other than that, we'll see you next time.